How do you recognize that photograph?
I recognize it from looking at it in my materials reviewed, that it's the rear of Miss Reed's SUV.
Taking a look at the area that I'm highlighting, right about there.
Yes.
Could we zoom in on that area? Do you see that overhang over the window?
Yes, I do.
If I use the word spoiler, would you understand what I'm talking about? If we call that a
Yes,
spoiler?
yes, I do.
Is the laceration to Mr. O'Keefe's upper eyelid that we just looked at, is that consistent in your opinion with a strike from that area of the vehicle if that vehicle were traveling in reverse at, say, 20 plus miles per hour?
No, that rounded, thick area would not cause that skin defect in his upper eyelid.
If, in fact, a person were hit at, say, 20 plus miles an hour in the face with that rounded edge, what kind of injury would you expect to see on that person's face?
I would expect to see a ribbon of bruise that would correspond to the height of that spoiler, and then it would go across the eyeball, it would hit the nose. So I would expect to see some horizontal ribbon of bruise.
Did you see anything consistent with that, with Mr. O'Keefe's injuries?
No, nothing.
Thank you. We can take that down. We talked yesterday about this phenomenon known as coup contra coup injury to the brain, correct?
Yes.
What happens to the brain after a coup contra coup, a significant coup contra coup injury?
Yes, this was quite a severe brain injury. Was injured on the back of the brain and also the front of the brain. The falling back and impacting the back of the head made the skull fracture radiate along the base of the brain on the right and left sides. It also radiated around on the side of the skull, and that indicates a tremendous transfer of force and energy to the skull and then to the brain, and the brain is rattled around, therefore, within the cerebral spinal fluid in the skull. So what that does is that it breaks the connections between the neurons in the brain and causes small little hemorrhages, and it causes the brain to swell. So when you get an injury, like if you get an injury on your arm, it starts to swell. The same thing happens when that injury energy is applied to the brain. The brain starts to swell. And unfortunately, the brain, when it swells, it doesn't have anywhere to go because it's encased in the skull. So what happens is that the brain and the brain stem under the brain starts to go down the opening in the base of the skull where your spinal cord goes. And that is a harbinger of death, because that means that the brain stem is getting pushed down in this hole in the skull and compressing the areas in the brain stem which control the heartbeat and breathing, and that's called brainstem herniation, and that you just die after that. So that's what happened to Mr. O'Keefe's brain.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, with the redaction, may I present the...
Not yet. 1 minute. Jurors, I told you before that there were photographs that have been introduced into evidence that aren't pleasant. And you may find that these photographs are graphic. And I'm instructing you again that your verdict must not in any way be influenced by the fact that these photographs, you'll see some more today, I believe, that have already been introduced into evidence. So your verdict must not in any way be influenced by the fact that these photographs may be unpleasant or graphic. The defendant's entitled to a verdict based solely on the evidence and not one based on pity or sympathy for the deceased, which might be occasioned by the photographs. Importantly, consider the photographs only as they may draw your attention to a clinical medical status or to the nature of Mr. O'Keefe's injuries themselves. So again, these will be presented to you in the deliberation room in an envelope. But today you'll see some on the screen, and I just wanted you to know that before you see it. So now you can display it.
Do you see what's displayed on the screen above your head?
Yes.
What is that?
Excuse me, that's a cross-section across the brainstem of Mr. O'Keefe, and it shows where the blue arrows I've put in there show the red areas, which are areas of bleeding, which is the sign of brainstem herniation. All the background is white material, and that's part of the appearance of neurons in the brain. So that shows that the brainstem, because of the brain swelling, pushed it down into the hole in the base of the skull where the spinal cord goes, and it pulls on the blood vessels, causing the blood vessels to break and the blood vessels to bleed, and that shows you that the brainstem has been compressed and damaged, causing death.
May I approach?
Yes.
I'm holding a green laser pointer.
Oh, thank
You
you.
could use the display to your right, so the viewers can better see it. Could you point to the areas with that laser pointer of the bleeding that you indicated causes the swelling?
Okay, so, okay. Is that going on the...
It is. It's probably
thank
hard
you.
for you to see.
Oh, that's okay. So this sort of roundish thing is the brainstem, and the arrows are pointing to the red areas. So there's a blood vessel that's broken there because it's been torn and pulled, with surrounding blood going into the neuronal tissue here and over here and over here. And also some of this is also bleeding, with the blood looking brown because the brain was placed in formaldehyde. So all this brown area, the red area, should not be there.
Is this type of herniation life-threatening?
It causes death. Yes, it is life-threatening.
How quickly, we can take that down. How quickly, doctor, would you expect that this could cause, let's first talk about incapacitation.
Yes.
How quickly would someone be incapacitated after they suffer a coup contra coup injury of this magnitude with the concomitant injuries that you see in the brainstem?
Well, there would be two parts to what that injury would cause the body to do. First, there would be immediate unconsciousness because of the transfer of all the energy to the brain and the massive skull fractures. So that, excuse me, so that would disrupt the normal function of the brain and produce immediate unconsciousness. Then the brain would start to swell, and within 15, 20 minutes or so, then that brainstem starts to go down the opening in the bottom of the skull, and then the blood vessels are broken, the brainstem gets compressed, and the centers in that brainstem which control the heart and the respiration then stop. So you go unconscious, brain swells, then you die.
Turning to the actual, your review of the actual brain, in this instance, Mr. O'Keefe's injuries specifically, did you reach any conclusion or opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty about his incapacitation, the length of time it would take for him to become first incapacitated and ultimately to be rendered dead?
He would be immediately incapacitated with a decreased level of consciousness. Once he received that impact on the back of the head, he would not be able to make any purposeful movements. There might be some arm jerking or some seizure activity, but he would not be able to carry. He wouldn't be able to get up. He wouldn't be able to walk. He wouldn't be able to do any purposeful activity. He would be severely concussed, unconscious, not able to walk, not able to carry out purposeful activity. And then as the brain continues swelling and that brain stem gets compressed, then the heartbeat is disrupted, the breathing is disrupted, and then those heart and breathing stop. And within 15 or 20 minutes, then he could be dead.
Is that opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty?
Yes, it is.
You testified concerning wound pattern recognition pretty extensively during the course of your giving your qualifications. What is a patterned injury?
A patterned injury is very basic to the training in forensic pathology and medicine because it helps us understand some change on the body, some pattern injury that corresponds to the object that made it. So we can look at an injury and say, we can figure out what made that. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But a pattern injury is very important for a forensic pathologist to recognize because it's going to really help the police investigation, because I can say, oh, this looks like it's a wound from scissors. This looks like it's a wound from a screwdriver stab. So by identifying the pattern that object makes on the body, I can help the death investigation by helping the police say, look for some screwdriver, look for some hammer. So looking at that, identifying a pattern injury is really important it's basic to the forensic pathologist's knowledge base, and then also very important to the investigation of the crime or incident.
I'd like you to look at another photograph, an exhibit that's already been put into evidence. 160, please, with the court's permission.
Yes, jurors, this may be one of the photographs as well. Mm-hmm. Right. Or there'll be a series.
Dr. Laposata, I want to draw your attention to the center of this photograph.
Yes.
First of all, do you recognize what's depicted here?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize?
I recognize it from reviewing the autopsy photographs of Mr. O'Keefe.
You reviewed it, informing your opinions and conclusions?
Yes.
Can you describe what's depicted in this photograph? What are we looking at?
Yes. So we're looking at the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head and an injury caused by the angular acceleration going down and hitting his head in the back. And then this is also a patterned injury. So what we see is the horizontal tear of the scalp, and we can see it's undermined a little bit. So that means the direction is going from bottom to top. Also, we see these sort of vertical lines in here and down below. So what that tells me is that the back of his head hit something that had a fine granular pattern to it to cause those individual little marks, and then also something that had a linear or ridged pattern that he went back on that broke the scalp there. So we have two parts really to this pattern injury. We have the horizontal tear of the scalp made by impact with some sort of ridged surface. And then we have these vertical scraping of the skin above and also below. They're obscured a little bit by the ruler there, which says that whatever he hit had some little like granularity to it, with each little sort of granule making those vertical marks, and then the ridged pattern having the major point of impact.
What is the significance of the pattern when you say ridged pattern, and there's two things we're looking at, the laceration or the abrasion versus the defect above and below that laceration?
Yeah, so what this injury tells me, or what I would tell the investigators, is that Mr. O'Keefe went back onto some object that had some sort of ridge to it to make that horizontal tear in the skin, but that ridge also it wasn't smooth. It had some little grainy grainy things sticking up on it that would make each of these little things. And then it's the job of the police then to go back to the scene and look around for something which might fit that pattern.
We can take that down. did you, in furtherance of your investigation, coming to your opinions and conclusions, look at the area of 34 Fairview?
The outside, yes.
Meaning photographs?
Yes.
Did you also see photographs of any significance to you related to the garage, the interior of the garage?
Sustained. Jurors, disregard that comment, that question.
What part of the area did you see? What part of the location did you see?
Excuse me. I saw all the scene photographs taken by the police, which showed the front yard in the area where Mr. O'Keefe was found. I also saw some photographs of the inside of the house and the inside of...
So I'm going to stop you there, Dr. Laposata. Jurors, I'm striking anything after what the pictures from outside, Mr. Jackson. Move on.
Let's stay with the outside of the home. Did
Yes.
you see the front lawn area?
Yes, I did.
How did you? What did you note about the front lawn area?
Well, I was looking at the area where Mr. O'Keefe's body was found, because we know once he came back and slammed his head, he's not going to get up and move around.
So, yes, I'm going to strike the second part of that. Just answer the question specifically.
Okay, I'll try, Your Honor. Thank you.
Why were you interested in the outside area where his body was found?
Because then I could identify an object possibly there that would have caused the injury on the back of his head.
Did you see any such object in any of the photos that you reviewed?
No, there was nothing there. It was a flat grass surface.
Would the flat grass, let's assume that the grass was very cold and very hard, the dirt was very cold and very hard, would falling backward onto that dirt, hard or not, would that cause the patterned injury that you see, that we just saw in Exhibit 160?
No.
Why do you say that?
Because if you fall back on a flat surface, you get many times the tear you get in the scalp can be more like a star, because you've just hit one part and then the tears go in kind of a star pattern. And also because you would not have those discrete vertical scraping of the skin. You would tend to, if you fell back on grass, you would tend to see, you might see grass in the wound, or you would tend to see an irregular kind of crisscross pattern of the flattened grass. And that's not what we have here on Mr. O'Keefe.